Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Van on the Loose. This is phase 3 of boot camp in this little mini series from talking about going through Marine boot camp back in 2001. And phase 3 was really, for me, the best part of boot camp. It's what I signed up for. It's what you kind of think of when you think of the word Marine, and that's just it's it's less of the show and the marching and more of the actual doing, in my opinion. We called it going up north because at San Diego, or MCRD, we went up to Camp Pendleton. So at Camp Pendleton, you're in your barracks there, and you're gonna do your rifle training. You're gonna, you know, you've got 1 week of snapping in where you're just dry firing the whole time, and you're getting used to the squeeze on the trigger. You're getting used to trying to get some type of sight picture, and they're talking about how to actually shoot the right way. And let me kind of advise y'all a little bit on these rifle weeks that they have. You're gonna go to the range, you're gonna shoot, you're gonna dry fire before you shoot, you're gonna work on loop sling, you're gonna shoot from all the different firing positions at 2, 3, and 500 yards. And what happens to some people is they don't pay attention to the period of instruction for them. They have an arrogance about it. They look at it, and they're if you've been around firearms for a long time, especially if you grew up hunting and stuff like that, the 5.56 round is not intimidating because it's way smaller than like a 270 or a 30-06. And in their minds, it's, well, I've been shooting my whole life, I already know how to shoot. This is for those guys that are from the city that have never been shooting before, that didn't grow up the way I did. Usually the people with the best scores are the people who've never fired a gun before, because they really take in that period of instruction, and they take it serious, and it's not just playing for them. It's not just your typical day at the range. For me, I spent my time really trying to do what they told me to. I'd never fired that type of distance before. Most of my shooting growing up was way closer, and most of it was with handguns. And if you don't need a handgun in the Marine Corps, unless you are an NCO or an officer, you may not even get a chance to hold a handgun in the Marines. So as someone in boot camp, you're dealing with your M16A2, at least back then. I don't know what they're using now. And you're doing iron sights at 2, 3, and 500 yards. Now, I know that currently they have optics on their firearm, even at boot camp. So they did have a lot more experts come off the range than what they did back in my time. And I've read that they're looking at adjusting that score to account for it being easier with the optics. So really take your time and pay attention to that. Another part of being in phase 3 is you're going to go through the gas chamber. And in some of these boot camp videos where they're doing documentaries about the gas chamber, you'll hear the drill instructor like, oh, it builds confidence in the drill instructors, it builds confidence in the Marine or the recruit at the time, and it builds confidence in their gear. Well, it may build your confidence in the gear, because you definitely realize when your mask is on and when your mask is off. It may build confidence in what you can make it through, but I don't know how it builds confidence in your drill instructors, because they're in there laughing at you wearing their gas masks the whole time, and making you try and like say your rifle serial number, what is your general order. So I don't know how it builds confidence in the drill instructors, but it definitely is something that sucks. That CS gas is not, you know, a pleasant experience. And if you have any sinus problems, they're about to get cleared out when you're in going to that chamber, because we broke our seal 3 times. We broke the seal once. We broke the seal and put our mask up. And then we broke our seal a 3rd time and held the mask out in front of us. And one of the tricks in that my recruiter actually helped me out with was, he said, when you do that, when you hold it out in front of you, breathe out first and then breathe in, because there's gas that's accumulated inside your mask. So when you put your seal back together and you take a big breath because you're trying to get some air while you have that mask on, he said, when you've had it out like that, if you breathe in first, you're going to suck all that into your chest cavity, and it's not going to go as well as if you blow out first. So I did that, and it really helped me. I know that I had some buddies that were coughing pretty hard, and you know, we actually had one that was so scared and so panicked in there that he actually pushed the drill instructor over, and he got out of the gas chamber, and they made him go through it a little bit longer than what the rest of us did. But in this phase, you're doing obstacle courses. You have your flak and your LBV, and yes, I said flak and LBV because I'm old, and we were wearing jungle, you know, pattern, and using that old stuff from the same stuff that they used back in Desert Storm. They didn't have the fancy plate carriers and all of the high speed looking stuff that they do now back when we were in boot camp. So, you know, you're getting used to wearing all that extra gear. You're going through, hiking up and down hills, and at that point, toward the end of all of phase 3, you're about to go into the Crucible. And the Crucible really deserves its own video, but I think I can get it done and not make this one too super long. In that Crucible, you're going to have 47 plus miles of marching, sleep deprivation, food deprivation. You're going to have a shelter half that you're going to be staying in, not your barracks. And it's full of obstacle courses, confidence courses, and I've got a few funny stories that I'll throw in on some other videos, but your feet will get tore up. I had blisters that wrapped around my feet, around my heel. Looked like I had basically taken the skin off of my entire foot. Blisters that wrapped all the way around the toes, and I mean, they just looked miserable, and they felt miserable. But, you know, we had corpsmen there with moleskin, and they tried to do what they could to help us get through that. The crazy thing about it was, at the end of the Crucible, at Camp Pendleton, when you're going through, you know, West Coast boot camp, you go up the Reaper. And every one of us expected to get our Eagle Globe and Anchor on the Reaper. That's what they had done in years past. That's what some were still doing. So that's just what we expected. But what happened was, instead of getting our Eagle Globe and Anchors, we got our martial arts belts. We were one of the first platoons, from my understanding, to get a martial arts belt. They gave us our martial arts belt, and it was like a handshake and said, all right, you did it. And it wasn't nearly the ceremony that we had seen in the documentaries that were put together before we went. So we were a little disappointed in that. Then you get to go down the hill, and you get to have your warrior breakfast of steak and eggs. And it's supposed to be kind of buffet, eat as much as you want. Our drill instructor did not think that was a good idea. So we got to go through one time. We almost ran back to the squad bay where our barracks was, and we got all our gear down, and then he was ITing, you know, we got IT'd after the Crucible, and while we were getting smoked, there was an officer that drove by, saw it. He stopped, yelled at the drill instructor in front of us, uh, cussed him out, told him to get us to bed, because you're supposed to rest after that because you had just been through a full ordeal of, what's supposed to be the hardest training you can go through at that time period for any type of boot camp. So I don't know if there are things harder now, but out of all of the military branches, boot camp, that's like the culminating hardest event that anyone goes through. We're all tore up, we're all tired, hurting, you know, in some places, and we were getting smoked. So he was not happy that that was happening to us. Um, After that, you go back to MCRD San Diego. You're going to do final inspection for the battalion commander. It's kind of like your final exam. He's going to ask you questions. He's going to look at how you look in your uniform, and then a few days later you're going to graduate. So there is graduation. Before graduation, you have family night. You get to see your family, get to hang out with them for a little bit. There's kind of a time period where you get to make fun of your drill instructors for a little bit, and they have a good time with it because they realize that they're doing ridiculous stuff. It's partly to break our bearing, partly because it's kind of a act. And then the next day that you graduate, out on the parade deck. So that's, kind of boot camp in a nutshell over these last few videos that I've done. I'm going to throw some funny stories in there because, like I said, they realize that they're basically playing an act, playing a role, and it leads to a lot of comedy, that you can look back at later and think, man, that was hilarious. At the time, it's usually not too funny. But appreciate y'all coming back to the videos. Like, subscribe, and share. And, if this helps you out at all, or if you have questions, if I can remember them, I definitely will answer them for you. So we'll talk to you again next time on Van on the Loose. And after this, it's going to be funny boot camp stories. One is me taking a leak in someone's canteen, so you'll want to come back for that one. We'll talk to you again next time, guys. We'll talk to you about those funny stories and gear reviews. And this is Van on the Loose out.